Welcome to Gossip About Gossip, powered by Hedera Hashgraph. In each episode, we'll cut through the hype of blockchain promises and explore real-world examples of organizations creating the next generation of decentralized applications, which will bring trust back to the internet for us all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Gossip About Gossip, the podcast where we talk about real-world applications of distributed ledger technology. My name is Zenobia Godschalk, and I'm the SVP of Communications here at Swirlds Labs, helping to grow the Hedera ecosystem. Today, I am joined by Michiel Mulders from our Developer Advocates team. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. And I think you are coming to us from somewhere that looks very cozy.
Oh, yeah. It's evening here. It's warm.
Good, good. All right. So today we are going to talk about a HIP and specifically HIP-412, which focuses on token metadata and its schema v2. So for the folks who have not looked at the HIP yet, who have not been playing around with this, can you tell us a little bit about why is metadata important? Why do we need a standard around metadata? And then essentially, what is this trying to achieve?
The first place is why do we need metadata? And the answer is actually, it might seem obvious, might not seem obvious, but metadata enriches your NFT. And in some cases, you can even have metadata that's more important than the NFT itself. For example, if you're dealing with real estate NFTs, in this case, the properties that define your house are way more valuable than the actual image you stick onto the NFT. But for Hedera specifically, metadata is often used for collectible NFTs. You have seen all the NFT art on our chain. And usually they want to store information about the project itself, the name, description. But they also want to store information about the attributes. And these attributes are usually used for calculating rarity or doing other kinds of investment grade calculations to estimate the value and the rarity of an NFT. But beyond that, there are many use cases for NFT metadata. You have asset provenance. You want to prove the history of an asset or the authenticity. You have licensing. You want to add information about who has the right to sell your image, who has the right to use it commercially. And then interoperability. You can define properties that say how can I transfer my NFT to another chain, and how do these do these fields map to the other chain? All these things matter, and the reason we need a standard is because we want to standardize the way the metadata is structured. So if you imagine there are 100 NFT projects on Hedera that all define their own standard, and if you're NFT tooling and you want to scrape all this information, present the user with the rarity, they will have to create custom modules per NFT project just to interpret the data. So what the standard is solving is that you create a defined structure that everyone knows about. And when NFT tooling wants to interpret the data, they can just see, okay, the image data will always sit under the image field. So there is no guessing, and they can be almost 100% sure that the data is in the correct place. And that's also the reason why the community was so eager to define a new standard.
And that, I think, speaks to sort of interoperability, right? In terms of being able to, what can you do? I think we are familiar with these kinds of standards for interoperability with other software systems. But when you think about it applied to NFTs, what are some of the ways that you see people now wanting to use that?
People really want to use it for all kinds of use cases. For us specifically, the metadata needs to be standardized for all kinds of NFT tooling, but we also try to design it in a flexible way so it caters to all kinds of use cases. So for example, again, you're doing real estate and you want to make sure your real estate NFT can be read by all kinds of real estate platforms. And to cater to this design, we introduced like a properties field, which is like a freely structurable field that you can use to like add all kinds of information. So the standard says like there are only 3 properties required: name, image, and type. And this makes sure that like our standard is interoperable with other chains, because it's like we only require a certain amount of properties to be there, and then all the other properties are like specific to our chain. Although some of the properties appear on other chains, the standards are like fairly common or like fairly synchronized. But that was like the first design choice we had to make. Like we want to make a non-intrusive standard that caters to all kinds of use cases while still being complementary to other chains, like interoperable. And then the second thing was to make it flexible. So for that, we use this properties field. And for example, you want to add like a website or like social links or any other kind of information about your NFT, you can just put it in the properties field. And there is no defined structure for it. So it's not allowed to put information on the root level of your JSON metadata definition, but you can add information in the properties field. And the benefit of this is that you can define your own schema, or like I call it a mini schema, where you like define how the properties field should be structured. So if you have a real estate NFT, you will just fill in the name, you will add an image, and you will add the type of the image. And then you in the properties field, you can define like I use this type of insulation. I used or like these are the dimensions of my property, and you can like define a standard for this specific field, and you can share it with other real estate platforms. So in this way, you can ensure that like anyone can still use your NFT while you are sticking to our standard. So that's like a really great way for people to design their own things while having minimal requirements to stick to the Hedera standard.
Right. So it sounds like whatever other platform you're trying to be interoperable with, you can add their requirements as needed.
The properties field is not a standardized property, but by having like these minimal requirements and like these kind of properties being very common across different chains, it makes them very interoperable. They're not always 100% interoperable, but what usually happens is that another chain or another marketplace is like cross-chain. They will write a small plugin that says the properties field matches property X in their system. So it's a very simple translation between Hedera system and a cross-chain NFT tooling platform.
Okay. And what was some of the feedback that you received from the community while this was going through the HIP process?
Yeah, the community was like really pushing forward to create a standard in the first place, because there were already issues arising from like we had an earlier standard HIP-10, which I didn't mention, which was actually the first version of the standard, which was like very strict. And we wanted to like open it up more while still like being backward compatible to the original standard. So there was a lot of community involvement. We had a lot of talks with like NFT tooling, how they can implement it, what their vision is. Also like how to future-proof it, how to future-proof the token metadata system. Like what do we do if we want to add like a new property to the field, or the NFT market suddenly changes and we need to adapt our standard. So we try to really cater to all these inputs from the community. And in the end, it was positively, they accepted it positively. So, and that's also the reason why it got merged.
Good. And, what are some of the areas where you're either seeing, folks start to implement it, or people having discussions that they plan to implement it?
Yeah, the first place that we also wanted to push it to is like the NFT explorers, the NFT wallets, the NFT tooling. So these places are really the first line that we want to talk to and implement it. And the next line of integration will be developers building new NFT tooling or new wallets, all kinds of NFT features, and they want to make use of the standard. And to cater to their use case, we also developed like an SDK. It's a very small package that allows you to verify your metadata against our standard. So they can just throw in their metadata, and within a second they have the verification if their metadata is correct or if they have certain errors against our standard. So we provide this tooling to make it also way more easy to adapt the new standard. So it's not like, hey, here's a new standard, now it's your turn to implement it. So we try to make it easy.
Well, and hopefully it is very easy. But if folks have questions, where should they go?
Well, the first place they can go is to our Discord. You can find me in the Discord and tag me in any of the channels, basically. Preferably the JavaScript channel, because the SDK is created in JavaScript. Other places are the HIP discussions. So if you go to the Hedera improvement proposals on GitHub, you can open a new discussion where you can like suggest a new property for the proposal, or you can even clone the original HIP and add some extra text yourself, so you can like submit a new proposal. Yeah, and then the third place is the GitHub repository that I mentioned. Is the JS NFT utilities SDK, where they can go as well. Many places to reach us.
Yes, good. All right. Well, I think this is very exciting for the community. It's very exciting as we see NFTs. I think there's always changes and fluctuations in the market, but I do think we are seeing more and more people say, wait, I want to apply this to real world assets. And those range in, what they might be and what kinds of systems they have to interact with. So very exciting to see.
So maybe one interesting thing that I want to add is like some of the cool stuff that you can do with our standard. So we designed a files array where you can store like all kinds of files that are attached to your NFT. So you could basically even create an audio song, like you design a song and you have an album cover. You could add the album cover to the files array, and you could also store the audio file to it. So you can create like multi-file NFTs. You can even add like a PDF file that describes like how you have created the song. So it's a very flexible standard. I already mentioned it. And the other cool thing that you can do is like nest NFTs. So you can create like a full NFT, and within the files array, you can link to another NFT on the chain that describes again another NFT. So you can really build like chained NFTs. If you want to do this, it's a complex use case, but the standard allows for it.
Very cool. Well, Michiel,
just to highlight the flexibility.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anything else you want to share with the community before we wrap up today?
No. If they want to reach me, hit me up, Michiel Mulders on Discord, and they will find me.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.